I'm your host, the 7th Wonder of the World, Taj Mahal, and this is the 7th Wonder Podcast.
Welcome on over to the 7th Wonder Podcast. Of course, I'm the host with the most, 7th Wonder of the World, Taj Mahal. And I got some good group of people with me today. Well, first and foremost, I brought Deidre back again. Deidre, you can say hello to the people first.
Hello. It's me again. Thank you, Taj, for thinking of me and having me a part of this second podcast. This will be the second time I'm on here with you. So, yeah.
I really appreciate it, man. We had a good conversation about how Atlanta runs the scene, and to this day, at least musically and as far as dancing goes, and I don't think we're going to ever stop running it. We're going to probably run the podcast scene if you give me a few more years. Show you how you
right.
It, you know? I also got a good friend of mine, Emmanuel. You can say hello to the people, too.
All right. What's going on, y'all? Good afternoons.
Hey, what was I asked you earlier? I think I said, so you do supplements, right?
Yeah, I do I know, it's kind of just the, in general, holistic idea, natural medicine. Like, I kind of think of it more like going back to kind of our roots, but it's also taking into consideration we're in the 21st century. So you got to kind of have a mashup of both. So that's kind of what I bring to the table as far as having optimal health. 100%.
It's all about balance. You know, in this episode, we're going to talk a lot about health and how to find balance in it. And last and not least, a new friend of mine that I just happened to find trying to sell insurance to and just put me on my head about health altogether. We got Andrea, everybody. Andrea, you can say hello to the people as well, man. Let them know you're
Hey, good people. My name is Andrea, coming to y'all by way of Jersey.
Hey.
Yeah, I'm excited. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you. Let's go.
Okay, so good then. That way, when it's time to go to Jersey, we can go outside. You can take me to the Jersey dance clubs and teach me the Jersey dancing. You know, we can.
Oh yeah. You gotta get a cheesesteak. Cheesesteak.
All my Jersey people. So, which part of Jersey are you from? Are you from the Philly side or are you from the New York side? It's kind of like two sides.
I'm from Atlantic City.
So it's closer to.
It's more influenced by Philadelphia.
Yeah.
But Atlantic City is where all the casinos are, so it has its own little vibe to it.
Okay. They do things different. All the homies I know are from like Orange and...
I know.
So no.
Because that's what everybody always say. North Jersey gets around. They in every state. South Jersey be like, we staying home. They don't really travel too much. They homegrown. They stay right where they at a lot. Or they go to Atlanta. It's a lot of Atlantic City people.
Well, that sounds like the rest of the United States. Don't we? I think there's only one road to Atlanta from all four corners of the United States.
That's Wakanda.
Hey, man, nothing like it. I tell you, I miss home every single day. Nevertheless, though, I mean, we can go ahead and get straight into it then, man. We got things rolling after a big fiasco. I was trying to get the ball rolling earlier. Let's go ahead and get the ball rolling now. So, my first question for you all is, like, how did everybody get started on their health journey? Like, I'll start with Emmanuel. Emmanuel, like, you tell us first, man. How'd you get started on your journey towards health and wellness?
All right. So, man, to kind of start the story, it's hard for me to just pick a spot because my whole life I was exposed to a lot of like weird things from a health standpoint. As far as like, my mother was sick from birth, like, so we were always in and out of the hospital, right? And I've witnessed her go through multiple surgeries. My last grandmother left early, and I've seen all these people kind of in my family suffer because of the way health is kind of portrayed in the United States. You know, from every aspect, from the food to the way they're treatment, being in the hospital, all of that stuff. And it was the most recent open heart surgery my mother had. So she's had 3. The most recent one was 2010. And, they said it so calmly, like, oh, this will give you another, 15 years of life. And I'm like, 2010, I'm only like, 20, 19. And, it's like, oh, that's not that long, dude. You can't be seriously, sitting here with a smile on your face telling me this is okay. So it was from that point where I was like, all right, we have to find a solution. You can't just keep going back and having the same surgery over and over and over again and calling it a fix, So that was the initial start in college.
Well, that's pretty deep, man. That's actually an interesting story.
Yeah. So, that was my first time kind of like searching for an answer. And then I came across Savy and then, started following his little, ideologies and stuff. And, that's kind of from the family perspective why I started. And then, me personally, because there is a personal aspect for me too. And, going through life as a young man, young woman, early 20s, you get exposed to a lot of junk. And I just be frank, just our health isn't always the best, especially, when you start dating and you start meeting people and you have these experiences. Everybody isn't always, they're not having the best experiences. And so as a result, you have to sometimes, you get the aftermath of some people's experiences. So it's like, I saw that kind of happen to a lot of us. Like we're, just to, straight up, STIs and STDs kind of riddle us younger people, and everybody isn't protecting themselves sexually. So that's another like important aspect to this too, because a lot of people think, there's different bad, the ideas, the knowledge isn't correct. And that's also based on how the medical profession is portraying it. So yeah, those are the kind of things that have motivated me to really get into it. Like more so, the chronic illnesses and people kind of giving you no option, nowhere to go. And it's really on both sides. People will tell you, you got this. There's nothing you can do. Well, that's a lie. And that's what kind of motivated me because I'm not the type of person to just accept, this is it and just, fold up. So
exactly. Gotta fight for it.
Gotta fight for it.
For sure. Andrea, what about you, love? What made you get into this healthier lifestyle?
I was about 14, I'd like to say. When I was about 14, I just took a look at my grandma's medicine cabinet. I was like, I don't want to take all these pills and mad cow disease and, you just start seeing so much stuff. And it actually hit Atlantic City. And so I gave up beef. I gave up pork, like independently on my own. And then as I got older, I ended up having a daughter, and my daughter had all these ailments. She had she would get high fever. She had eczema. She had asthma. And they were giving her all these chemicals, and she was like a two-tone kid with alligator skin. And I was like, I can't have a kid that looks like a reptile. So I said, it has to be, like, I just started reading, like, all the side effects of all the medication she was taking. And I was like, God can't make something and not make a cure for it. And that's right. So, that's when you kind of lean on your faith, right? You start trusting God, and you like, if God creates all things, then he has to create a cure. And so that's when I started learning about how her diet played a role in, her eczema, the milk, the sugars, different things like that. And I just took an interest in it. And so I developed a heart murmur when I was pregnant, and I was devastated because I thought, it was a death sentence. Because I'm like, if it gets worse, then I'm going to need a new heart. And it's hard as an African-American female to get a heart. I had a friend who was on a donor list, and it took forever. We almost lost her. And so that just made me just more conscious of my health, because you never know how long you're going to live, but you can choose the quality of life you live while you are here. And so that's when I decided to just be more mindful of the things I was eating and taking. And I didn't give up meat completely, but I rarely eat like meat or fish or chicken. And you notice the difference in your energy. You notice the difference in your body. You notice the difference in just your energy levels. Like, I wasn't as lethargic. And growing up, my mom would do things like put on your feet if you had a fever, and so that's when I learned, you can use honey to calm an asthma attack, and caffeinated tea and different things like that. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And I'm like, so I don't need the steroids for her. And I decided to become a certified yoga instructor. So then that just takes you to a whole nother level where you start paying attention to like your energy and your chakras and how the food we eat can cause nightmares or it can cause you to sleep through the night. And then I progressed and I became a certified doula, which is basically a birth coach. It's one step under being a midwife. And I'm able to now use my knowledge to help minimize the Black infant mortality rate. So my passion has really grew beyond me and really been focused on my community. And I just see the need that if we change our diets, we literally can change our life expectancy.
That's 100% true. And that's why this is an important topic to talk about today. And then last but not least, though, of course, Deidre, tell us about you. What about your journey?
I would say mine's kind of started at a very young age. I could say this is probably when I was around like 11, 12. I don't know if y'all remember when soya milk kind of became popular, even though we kind of find out years later it's actually trash. But I know that just at a young age, every time I find new health food information, it was just very easy for me to just kind of like do more research and just kind of get on the bandwagon. And I came across this health diet book when I was about 14, just talking about like the food industry and just how about like, you know, how a lot of these animals are being like treated for in order for us to consume it, and how a lot of them still have like cancers attached to it. And there's a difference between like GMO food and organic food, and paying attention to the numbers, the sticker on your produce, and all of that kind of blew my mind. Like it kind of scared me more than anything. And once I was able to digest it in my young teenage mind, I just kind of always felt the need to try my best to eat as well as possible. So, you know, that was kind of like the start of it. What kind of kicked it into high gear was I always suffered from eczema as a kid, and I was always given treatment to treat it on the outside. And it wasn't until I saw a GI doctor, they let me know that your eczema is being caused from your diet. So all these years, I never knew my diet had anything to do with my eczema. But me being from the Caribbean, we just always assume maybe just had the weather, and then the areas I would get it is where it's mostly like moist and kind of a little bit heated. So they were just saying like, you know, that could be the cause of the irritation. But then I found out that I'm actually gluten intolerant, and I don't have the celiac disease, but I am very sensitive to gluten. And what's so funny is I have a history of thyroid in my family, and I also was told that you have thyroid in your family, it's a high chance that you have a gluten intolerance, which, you know, thyroid can affect your weight and it do affect your diet as well. And I would have never been able to make the two links if I didn't see this GI doctor back in 2012. But ever since then, I just try to look for ways to naturally like heal myself. That's when I learned about flaxseed oil and a lot of good healthy fatty oils to help me kind of like moisturize and nourish myself from the inside out. And it just was one thing from the other. Like I started just dabbling more deeper into it because I am a huge believer that, like sis said, like I'm a huge believer and God makes everything, so it's gonna be a cure for something. And I start just looking into like herbal healings and just like other remedies, and just being from the Caribbean, like we're taught at a very young age how like certain teas, ginger tea, bush tea, soursop tea, how just like certain stuff just does the body well, and just kind of stick with me. And again, overall, is mostly of a conscious choice. I wasn't raised in a very healthy household. I was raised in a household that eats plentiful. So we kind of had a little bit of everything. One day we might eat healthy. The other day we just kind of eating whatever my mom whipped up that wasn't healthy. But for me, just over the years, I just noticed that if I want to live a fulfilling, healthy life, I would have to make the decision on picking better food and preparing better food. Overall, I would say it was just like a conscious decision. I do want to live a whole life. I want to be here for a long time. I don't want to have any complications, just, you know, just any self-inflicted illness brought upon me. So, yeah, I just took it upon myself to just want to better myself. You know, we want to be here. You know, I have children as well, and I want to live a long, healthy life to be here for them and my grandkids and great-grandkids, and just, you know, that's just really it.
Yeah, you want to live for all eternity. You want to be able to live the life that you live now and pass that down through through your bloodline. You know, from what I'm getting from everybody though is that it sounds like everybody started off young. You know, and what is the importance, I say, of starting off a healthy diet as young as possible? Emmanuel, lead that talk. What makes starting off, say, like a holistic diet so important at a younger age?
Younger age, you know, it's, some people say life is a circle. Some people believe in that. So it's like, really, you know, pick a point and start. If you have, you know, this is my personal opinion, pick a point and start. Because when you really think about it, there's also preparation, you know, both people should do before bearing a child too. So then you start going back into the person, you know, into the parents. So it's really as early as you can possibly fathom it to be. So if I'm a 10-year-old boy and all of a sudden I figure out that I'm eating junk food, start right, you know, your best bet is just to start right now. The Mucusless Diet, written by Arnold Herrera. I'm going to reference this book a couple of times. I feel it because this is that person is a very powerful person. When you go and read his book.
Who you talking about again? What's his name?
The title of the book is called The Mucusless Diet. And he wrote this book. He was a master dietitian, and he wrote this book in the 20s. And he just magically just passed away at 50 years old in perfect health in his front driveway. So talk about conspiracy theory all day. But the point I'm making is a lot of Dr. Sebi's points you can read in that book, and you'll see it. So I reference his information a lot because to me he's original, and he talks about fasting. He talks about a lot of just out of the norm ideas that a lot of people don't necessarily think about. So it goes back and forth. I go back and forth to that. So one major point that he talked about is that, you know, when you take the step to become, you know, more healthy or you're improving your lifestyle, it's not an overnight thing. It's not a couple month type of deal. It's really a process that takes 2 to 3 years. You know, for anybody, it doesn't matter how old you are, young, you know, under 18, over 40, over 80, you know, it doesn't matter based on his literature and what he talks about. Personally, what I've seen, it doesn't matter. When I worked at 7th WNDR for the time I did, there was this older gentleman who came in, and when I met him, he was in his 80s, walking fine, normal, but he was in charge of these. It was like a sauna, and we basically, you know, gathered in this hut, this steam, and it was steam, right? So his story was that he was eating trash and at 60 years old, but and almost passed away from, you know, a chronic illness, but decided to change his life. And in less than 5 years, he's walking normal. He's 84, walking as, you know, like he's just, 50 or 60 years old or whatever perfect health may look like to you. So these things don't necessarily have a point of starting beyond what you can mentally perceive or desire in your mind. Like there's a spiritual component, mental component, there's a, you know, physical component as well. And all three of those things to me have to kind of say to you, all right, this is what I want to do, you know? And for a child under 10, that's more to me a choice of the parents. And then, you know, the parents can realize these things at different ages, different times. You can say, you know, I want to have a kid to your husband or to your wife and say, you know, I've been reading this. I would like to, you know, kind of prepare for, you know, if I'm having one or two. And I understand some people kind of just like after the second one, oh, I'm done. I don't really want to prepare. I just want to do it. But when you learn about these herbs, and I haven't had the chance to personally be a part of a part of a process with someone who was pregnant, but I've recommended herbs and blends for other people who were pregnant, but I just never got a chance to be right next to them through the process. But based on the information that I know, this stuff goes into generations. Like when you break the chain of that, you know, bad food, bad diet, or whatever, you know, whatever you want to call it, it becomes something that is forever as long as, you know, your family or your group entity believes in that. So that's really the age factor. Like, when do you want to do? You want to break this thing right now, whatever age you're at, so that everybody can start doing better. And then that's just not going down to younger people. This goes up to your older and your elders too. It's not just one flow. That's why that circle analogy is really perfect when it comes to the timing of when I want to be a better me.
You actually brought up a good point. I'm gonna slide it over to Andrea when you talked about, you know, implementing herbs to younger children and during the birth situation. Andre, can you add on to that? Like, when can you implement herbs and supplements into a child's life? Is it as early as breastfeeding? Is it like how early or how later in life can you start to advance that?
I mean, absolutely. You just have to be mindful of what herbs you use because, some can cause you to go into labor early. So you definitely want to make sure that you're speaking to someone who knows about herbs. And if it's someone who is listening to the podcast right now and you're like, oh, I want to try, definitely Google it and it'll tell you like if it's good for pregnancy, if it's not, and you can always get an opinion. There's so many, reliable sources that you'll be able to go to, but also like things like, okay, let's take herpes. So herpes, they say like 1 in 2 people have it, right? So if a woman is going into labor, she has to take a medicine so she's able to vaginally push out her baby. However, you can take a bath using lemongrass oil and it stops the outbreaks. So, like, essential oils are also awesome, and they play a major role in your health, but you don't even have to be pregnant for that. So, it's just knowing what it is and be willing to do the research. And where you don't want to do the research, maybe some people aren't the best at reading books, but you can always listen to it on YouTube or go to a site. I would definitely just recommend getting in touch with somebody who knows about it, and just be mindful that doctors will tell you stuff you can do, you shouldn't do, and get a second opinion because doctors only use 10% of their brains, and a lot of times herbalists are underground because there is a conspiracy, and a lot of herbalists are being murdered, like at record numbers. And it's not just African Americans. So, yeah. But I'm going to leave that for another time.
No, we're not
going to whole conversation in itself.
And we not going to run away from the elephant in the room. We're going to definitely talk about the conspiracies right now. So I'm going to start off with Deidre, man, because if anybody knows something about some conspiracies that can break it down to you, it's going to be Deidre. What's your take on this conspiracy to annihilate all health and wellness professionals, especially those who are herbalists or like those who follow the realm of Dr. Sebi?
Well, first of all, let's not claim the term conspiracy because they are getting knocked off. Like they're definitely, it was a time where their deaths was circulating more online for people to kind of be more aware about. But I remember 1 month they said 30 was found dead within a month, whether if it was a shot to the head, it was found drowned. Very healthy people who didn't have any drama in their lives, who just been found killed. So definitely not a conspiracy. And, again, like you said, the elephant in the room, big pharma, like pharmacies, they notice that is a shift that's happening among the people. For decades, they kind of had us with just going by their kind of like one-track mind about wellness and treatments. And they realized that people now, mass people at that, is starting to wake up to alternative ways of treatment. People are we are returning back to the earth, and they're losing money. Their propaganda isn't working anymore. And the fact that you have skilled people who have dedicated their lives on researching about, ways to heal ourselves and actually have healed themselves, they're losing money, they're losing clients, and they're going to knock off the trusted head. They know every movement have a leader, and everyone is a leader. The minute you take that conscious decision on to better your life, a natural, holistic way, you become a leader in your household, to your community. But once you see someone with a platform with their own practice, who's doing this, they're definitely going to come after you because you're threatening their money. You're threatening, again, like the years of propaganda that they've been selling to us. These are the same people who try to tell us cow milk make healthy bones. People are not buying that anymore. People, a lot of stuff that they try to sell to us is not selling anymore. And they're going to come for those who is causing this shift to happen. So, yeah, it's definitely not a conspiracy. Even to this day, like I was actually just talking about this last week, I often think about how Dr. Sebi died. And it kind of broke my heart how it just kind of happened. Even if some people close to him claim that he was indeed, not in his most healthiest state, which I don't believe, honestly. But just the fact that how it kind of happened, It do make me very sad. And yeah, they're definitely coming for those who's trying to help us return back to Earth. So yeah, definitely not a conspiracy at all. They hitting folks off, okay?
So it's not a game out here. What you think? All right, go ahead. Anybody, what y'all think?
Get a piece?
Yeah, take a slice.
The conspiracy of it all. I mean, I guess it's only conspiracy because of the fact that it's government organizations that inevitably have an issue. Like when I create a product, or when a lot of these, like even major brands like Nature's Plus, Natural Factors, Blue Bonnet, they have to have on their bottles, this is not FDA approved. And when you think about who is kind of laying out what is a healthy diet, it's the CDC, it's the FDA. And we can't say, and this is for everybody. This is very important. When you say the word cure to anybody, and that's what's gonna kill you, man. Straight up. Because that is what the FDA does not immediately want you to say. That's what will get you shut down working at any kind of natural food or natural doctor's office. Because when you start claiming what hasn't been researched to the T by these government organizations to be a cure or a treatment, then you're going against the law, because they regulate those things. So that isn't a conspiracy. That is going to get you messed up. Dr. Richardson in North Atlanta is a naturopathic doctor. He ended up going to jail about 3-4 years ago because somebody said the wrong thing to a government official. And he was just making natural supplement capsules just like me or anybody else that has a brand that's into this. And they sent him to jail because, he didn't have the right verbiage. He didn't have the right, as far as setup for liability. Like, I'm sure even as, Andrea, as a doula, there's certain things you can't say or claim that will cause you to have to take liability, because you're not a doctor. You can't just deliver babies. You know what I mean? You have to, you say you have particular vocabulary. So anybody who's listening to this, when you come to me as an herbalist, it irks me when you say I need a cure. You know what I mean? Because I believe in that for you. I believe 100% that I can do that for you. But in the reality of where we live right in America, the same America that's destroying everything that's natural. And, to me, that's the difference. Anyway, that's the root right there. That's what we have to be mindful of.
Now, you said that the gentleman who was an herbalist from out of North Atlanta that went to jail because of the verbiage. Well, that makes sense, though. That doesn't seem like a conspiracy. That's more so, right, making sure that you are staying up to the proper level of practice so that you're not fooling anybody. They want you to be as legit as possible. So you can't be claiming to give a cure if you're not going out doing the necessary steps and research.
Yeah. When you think about, Dr. Sabi was saying cure left and right? He went to court talking about it, right? Yeah. No, but seriously, that's what his thing was. And he ended up going to jail. And I have heard multiple sides and all kinds of people's opinions, his sister and his wife and him, his followers, and what, I've seen his products over $800 at the time, all that stuff. It was just crazy. But you have to be mindful of what he represented to the world and what just a general herbalist is. And there's, actually like thousands, tens of thousands of us everywhere. Like traditional Chinese medicine exists. And it functions, and no one isn't really like, being destroyed like that. But it's a different mindset outside of the United States, what I've learned when it comes to these things. So that's really all I have for it. Because conspiracy, I feel like there's a lot of things behind the scenes that are going on that create the reality that we're in. And you can call it conspiracy or you're not, but it's just what it is. And at the end of the day, your belief is what's most powerful in that story. So it's, that's reality to me.
I feel like overall your belief plays a major role, because even when they do placebo tests, if your mind believes that it can cure you, 80% of the time your body performs better with it because of the belief, just that having that mindset. Whereas if you think it's not going to work, a lot of times it doesn't. But I also believe that the reason African American or just people of African descent, people of color are often getting taken out because, like you said, in Chinese medicine, we already know that they use herbs, but nobody really talks about it, right? They just do it. It's just the thing that they're known for, whereas our libraries were destroyed. A lot of our knowledge was destroyed on the path to slavery, right? When we came over. And so to return back to everything they stripped from us, it's kind of like, wait, y'all are liquid gold. So we need y'all to buy into the whole religion concept. We need y'all to buy into, you need medicine. We need you to buy into, in the room, you're inferior. Like a doctor tells a woman it's impossible. She just goes with, well, the doctor said it, right? So a lot of women don't even know to ask, is it medically necessary? Something you should ask. And I've been in a room with, white women, and they know their rights, they know what to say, and they'll go back and the doctor's not push right. But when you a black woman, I just wanna breast, and it's like they'll end up giving your baby bottle, or you're trying to push and they're rushing you to get a cesarean section, a C-section. And so a lot of things happen to people of color. It's like we get this extra burden on us. And I feel like the more we enlighten ourselves, it's interesting how people are afraid for people of color to be educated. It's like they want us to live in this fog. And speaking of medication, so Pitocin is FDA approved to ripen the cervix, right, to induce labor. Cytotec is also used to induce labor, but it's only FDA approved for stomach ulcers. Yet, they're using that to induce your labor. It's not FDA approved for that. So the FDA approval is just a thing of money. It's like who's buying who, and the pharmaceutical company is just, so strong because they have so much capital behind them. And when you just think of the way they do things, like the crack epidemic. When the crack epidemic happened, they were locking people up left and right, taking their kids, putting them in foster care. Once the oxytocin era happened and everybody started popping pills and they didn't look like us, now all of a sudden we have an issue and we got to give people counseling and we have to give them help. So, I feel like we just, as a people, we just have a lot of chips stacked against us. And I'm so thankful that people are finally waking up and coming to light, and everybody's not being loud about it, but it's definitely a force. Like, we're not as ignorant as they try to portray us on TV at all.
These are facts. That's 100% true.
That is the conspiracy. That's the suppression of natural Aboriginal people.
You guys are talking about actually helps me bring up a point. Herbal medicine has been around for over 5,000 years, pretty much. Why do you believe there's a resurgence of this type of medicine practice in the first place?
I just feel like everything happens on perfect timing for a reason. Like I feel this past decade in particular, along with just even the internet can be a rabbit hole on two reasons. It can introduce you to everything you need to literally change your life, and it can literally introduce you to everything that can destroy you. I feel like the natural intuition of humans, before we kind of get dumbed down, or before we get dumbed down, we yearn for information and we just kind of yearn for wellness, believe it or not. As much as they try to say like the masses is kind of gone waste, I have high faith into humanity. And I just feel like, the time is just now. I just feel like is a lot more discussions happening. I feel like a lot of people is being more conscious and just being aware of how their loved ones have been suffering due to like poor health and just relying on these same doctors. And especially our generation is the one who's been asking the real questions. We have our great grandparents or our grandparent who literally have been taught that this is the only way to go about stuff. And even though they kind of didn't have as much chemical exposure as we did, they kind of didn't have the tools or the right information to question or to back up their questions for even why they're questioning it, versus us who we're just living in a time where we just kind of peep the BS. And I just think it's just at the perfect call and the perfect time of that.
Is it because social media and all these different media outlets give us a chance to kind of bring what we declare the truth to the forefront? Or
that's definitely a huge point. That's definitely one.
I also think it has to do with also the people who are not afraid to speak. Like, I feel like for some people, Nipsey's death, right, opened people up to Sage. Like, I was using Sage way before Nipsey, right? But Nipsey's father's from Africa, so a lot of things he practiced because that's what they practice over there. And so I feel like when you have, there are a lot of people who are in wealth circles, but they don't share the information with the common people, right? So they kind of keep that information behind doors. Like a lot of music artists, they're not all what they put on a rap, on their music. And so I feel like when influential people like that, like Jay-Z or Beyonce, begins to become conscious, everybody's not meant to lead, right? So some people, their goal is to follow. Everybody can't be the star in the show. So I feel like when you have people like Beyonce saying, we don't really eat meat, or Jay-Z saying, you shouldn't just be buying chains, you should buy some stocks. When you have people like that saying things who already have a following, people want to be like the people they want to follow. And so I feel like that's opening their eyes. I also feel like that you have a situation where individuals are just speaking more because social media just gives you a platform, because a lot of things our parents were doing, but they didn't speak about it because they have this distrust, right? So you got to remember, our grandparents come from an era where that was Martin Luther King, right? So they was being hung, they were being beat. You couldn't look at a white person wrong without having an issue. So with that being said, there was a lot of oppression with what they could say publicly. And in this generation, even though we're still being murdered, right, it's not as much as they were. And now we know we do have some rights on our side, so we're becoming a little bit more revolutionary. But there's still a lot of sheep, and there's still a lot of people who, if a Black person comes to you and say, hey, this will help you get over this, they're like, okay. But if your white counterpart comes up and says the same thing, they're like, oh, okay, well, she just told me, Tom just told me that, so it got to be right. But
that's literally the story of my life.
So, and then you got that light skin versus dark skin thing. It's too much self-hate, but I feel like the more we choose to come together, like each day we have a choice. I can choose to be a better version of myself, or I can choose to be these subtitles everybody wants to put on me. And I feel like the more we choose to be better, and the more we choose not to feed the ignorance, and the more people like yourself, Taj, have platforms like this where people of color can come together and collectively share, it just makes the world a better place.
Yeah, 100%. And that's what we're here for everybody to get out there, different levels of expression, so that way you can be seen and you can be heard. It starts off small, but it's a ripple effect. So the more you do it, the better it becomes. I want to go back to another topic about the FDA. So as you all know, kind of like what you all said, well, a lot of people, I think Emmanuel said it, where he said that, we want the FDA to approve it, but it's not really the FDA approving it, it's the CDC. Go back on that, Emmanuel. Tell us why do you say that? Why is it the CDC and not the FDA?
As far as approving what's right, like what's good.
So the different medicines, the Food and Drug Administration, I believe was the group that went in and approved what kind of foods and what kind of drugs can be implemented as what kind of drugs you can implement into the market. But did you say that the CDC kind of gives more approval more so than the FDA?
No, not necessarily. I mean, they both have their own, like they both create guidelines for the general public in their own way. And I was speaking on that from like how to protect yourself, what to expect when you communicate with people. Like when you talk to a doctor and you say, I want to try a supplement, he's going to second guess that supplement because it's not something that he or she was taught in their school, or it's not something that they were, using at any time in their career. It's brand new. Why? Because the CDC it's not something that's a part of their regular regimens. So they miss. And that's the tough part, because I have friends who are, studying to be doctors, studying to, that are currently nurses, respiratory therapists. And, they have their stories where they feel like they are helping the community, and they are. If somebody's getting a chance at life tomorrow because of something they did today, then, that's not as bad as, some people can make it out to be. It's the misinformation. So, it goes back to those larger entities and who's responsible for the condition that the general public is in as far as medicine. Like even with COVID-19, everything is going through the FDA and the CDC. So it's like, when did we trust these people so much? Like, when did that happen? It didn't. It never happened. Now all of a sudden we're like, wash our hands more and, stay, social distancing and all this stuff. And I'm going to do it. You know what I mean? Because it makes sense. Like, I don't want to catch anything, but that's what I've always done. But I'll go with the flow right now. But at the same time, we have to stay vigilant and, and take care of yourself inside and out. Like, I mean, man, I can go all day long about what COVID and how it coincides with why there's too much mucus in your body. You're dying of COVID because you can't break the mucus up. Like, these are foundational. These are foundational things in the holistic community, in the natural medicine community.
Hold on, brother. You say you can go all day. Let's go all day then. So why is it important to get mucus out of your body then?
You said 40 minutes, bro.
We can add a little
COVID
bit
is
more
a
time.
conversation in itself.
He's going to chop and screw.
Yeah.
The potatoes.
Bro, you got me hyped now. I want to hear more about it, at least a little bit. Implement it into, what I'm saying? Put the medicine in the candy for me. So, with the COVID-19, are you saying that because a lot of us are on these diets that causes us to produce more mucus, it's really affecting us in a way where we are more exposed to the COVID virus?
No, not exposed, but our bodies aren't able to, the immune system, the entire circulatory system is preoccupied already with the amount of mucus that we are creating in ourselves because of American diet. You know what I mean? And everybody on this phone on this podcast may not be, as involved with, we're not eating American diet fully, and I'm glad that we aren't, but there's a number of us, and the whole entirety of the American diet is really like, if you read it with some people, it's to attack, the minority race, the black culture, black race. Like, it's not just crack. The first thing that they infiltrated was the foods first, and these things have psychological and addictive, byproducts, and it builds that kind of habit. So, it doesn't really surprise me per se when they say, black people are getting it the worst. Well, we have to work. We've had an issue from the beginning with our diets, and it's because of who we are, where we come from, and this diet being, made to genetically just tear us apart. So now you introduce this new virus. And so man, that's where it starts. So, like, when you eat a cheeseburger, that creates mucus all over your body, from the excessive protein and the extra salt and the carbs turning into sugars and all that stuff. It can go anywhere. It can go everywhere, man, and then when you introduce the Chinese have broken it down already. To where what happens is there's mucus in the upper respiratory that hardens to the point where you can't breathe anymore. When you think about holistic medicine, everybody talks about hardening. Hardening is the worst thing that can happen to your body. It goes back to Arnold Ehret. So when we talk about all of a sudden, everybody's talking about natural medicine now, this man has already talked about this stuff. The mucusless diet. He's already in 1920 created a list of foods that have acid binding or acid forming effect. So we've had so much time to fix this problem, but it doesn't matter. We're here now. So hardening of the liver is cirrhosis. Hardening of the lungs, is asthma and is tuberculosis. Hardening of anything is what you're trying to avoid. So when you have excessive mucus, you have a virus that causes the hardening to happen. That's why people pass away, or you can't move, you can't do a lot of things anymore, like stroke or whatever. So, man, it's very basic what we can do as far as for COVID. But it's very dangerous because of the conspiracy of the fact that this is just a phenomenon from China. When we come out the gate trying to fix this thing, it's very simple. Like, they're making this out to be like, we need a vaccine and everything, but it doesn't really require that much to me. But this is very dangerous. So I just want to stop right now.
We got you, brother. We want you to live a long and successful life, and and conjure up as much success as you can. So we're gonna let you stop right there in your tracks. Based off what he said, though, guys, like, what are some ways to, I guess, an average person can do during COVID-19 to protect themselves?
Exercise, out liquids, and do the things you're supposed to do. So I feel like as long as you do that, like, you should be fine. A lot of diseases lives inside of the mucus. And so, I mean, if you read anything, that's pretty much what it says. Like, you can literally rid your body of anything according to the teachings of the ancients. So it doesn't even have to be what somebody's currently saying now. It's just, you can look at the study of time. You can look at the documents from Dr. Sebi. And I know we highlight Dr. Sebi a lot because he, I feel like once, Magic Johnson kind of was like, I find my AIDS and HIV and left eye, that really kind of made him very popular amongst the Black culture. A lot of people who weren't aware of it. But I just feel like if we go back to who we are, like eating from the earth, it's like an animal dies and you eat it. And if that's what you're into, that's absolutely fine. However, just know you can either eat life or you can eat death. A plant is a living thing, so it's going to make you more electric. It makes you more alive. And when you eat those heavy foods filled with cheese that has pus in it, which is okay, according to the FDA. It has pus and all these chemicals and things in it, and it makes you lethargic, and now you're tired. And we call it diabetes or ethnic fatigue. But if it's making you tired, then that's letting you know it's not really for your body because it's weighing you down. But when you eat things like vegetables, you have a piece of fruit, you have a piece of vegetable, you can still go on about your day. You can work out, you can do this. So I mean, we just gotta get back into being in tune with our body and having that disconnect also with spirituality. Like, we get so lost in religion to be divisive, but you get back to being spiritual and you just learn to listen and clear your third eye, those and unnecessary stuff they're putting in our water and our food. Then it kind of opens you up. Like, you dream different, you talk different, you feel different. Like, you just want what's better and feels good for yourself. But that's a whole nother podcast. I digress.
Y'all don't want to give away all this game for free. I got you. I'm gonna find a way to pay everybody for the
let's
game.
break it up. Let's have another 2 or 3 podcast topics.
Right, we can talk for days because this squad is pretty dope. I like this squad.
It's like it's so much information, you just get lost in. You know what I mean? It's like, where do I'm saying the wrong thing too early, too late. It's like, man.
You hit it around the head. It's a lot of information.
But it all connects, though. Emmanuel, and that's what I wish we can give people, like, eating healthy makes you have a better sex life, makes you a better parent, it makes you a better person.
Everything. It speaks to the spirits. It speaks to your ancestors right there. Call on them and make them do your bidding right there.
Right. You don't need these pills, the blue pill. You don't need this. You don't need that. Even when we talk about menopause, that's blocking your tube. Like, you don't even have to go into menopause early, but because you got all this stuff in your body, here's the problem. Or all this cleaner on your face, right? That's supposed to avoid the pimples, and you find out that's what's actually breaking you out.
What, man?
What there's soap in your bath water, and your vagina doesn't smell as healthy as it could smell. Or, sis, okay, guys.
Using latex condoms in your sensitive vagina. That thing is terrible. For real. Latex is terrible for your body.
Or using a douche, putting all that stuff in your body. Like, you do a steam, and you like, what is that? Or, the pearls, and you're like, it's just stuff that
what's that too.
See, and that's people want to know about the sex talk on a serious tip, like, and then it protects you. Like, you're like, when people think about how a STI just breaks out of nowhere, it really starts from within you. Like, if you're eating cheeseburgers and chips every day, breakfast, noon, and night, drinking Sprite and Coca-Cola every day, I mean, man or woman, you're gonna your stuff is gonna start. It's gonna start hurting. You're not drinking water, your kidneys and your all of it. So things ferment, and when you hold in waste, it sits in your body. So all of these things can breed infection, bacterial infection through your urethra, your wherever. Like these things have a source.
The simple fact that they try to make it seem like a yeast infection is just like, not to say like a norm for a female, but it's speaked about so lightly as if it like it's very pish posh when a yeast infection is a huge indicator that your female juices is not flowing. It's clearly not. It's clumped up.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Or you eat too much seafood and then you start smelling like if you think about like, okay, I want to be married or I want to be in this relationship, but you have a heavy, so you're a pescatarian and you have a heavy seafood diet, right? Because I tried the pescatarian route and I'm like, when I would go use the bathroom, I'm like, wow, you really are what you eat. Like you eat asparagus, you smell it. You eat too much shrimp, you smell it. And I was just like, okay, wow, I never realized it because when I was eating other stuff, it didn't stand out. So then you think about like, oh, I don't really want to eat seafood if this is going to just come out. And then when people sweat, you like, why do they smell like that? Like it's your diet. Like men think they're doing a great thing when they're drinking protein drinks. That comes out in your semen, sir. Studies show vegetarians have sweeter semen. So you need to really think about, like, if you're a man and you want a woman to do all these things to you, or you're a woman and you want a man to do all these things to you, what are you giving him? Like, if you're feeding your body trash, then that's literally what you're giving to your partner. And should you really even be letting somebody put their mouth on you there if you didn't even get a check? Because you don't know if they got chlamydia of the mouth. Like, you don't know what they have, and then that stuff transfers into you because as women, we take everything in. And so we just have to be mindful of the spiritual energy we're taking in, the physical energy we're taking in. And I know it's like we're in a microwave society where it's like, I just want to have sex, and that's nice, but why? Like, sex is a drug. And so, like, if we start taking sex more seriously and understanding, like, what it's really for and how you really connect to people, and how it affects your body overall, I just feel like society would be a whole lot better.
Oh, definitely. I feel like the main reason why people don't take sex as seriously because they're afraid of accountability. And that works on both ends. Like, you get some females who happen to just constantly keep having sex with guys who's no good for them. And then when they find themselves in like a very sad situation, they're very quick to blame victim, or he did this to me, or he don't want to step up to the plate to his responsibility. But it all comes down to accountability at the end of the day. And I feel like that's why people don't take sex as serious as they should, because they don't want to take accountability for the partners that they choose, or the bad spirits that they're now stuck with, or the STDs that they're stuck with because he wasn't honest and didn't tell me what he had. But again, it just kind of like, it works on all ends. And people don't realize, now you stuck with a baby father that you hate. You're just kind of like, you gotta take accountability on both ends.
Well, guys, it's been a great conversation, man. You guys have schooled everybody on some game that they probably didn't know about before. And just like you said, man, we're going to have to say some of this great conversation for another time, too, though. Before we get up out of here, any last thoughts, any last words anybody want to say?
I just want to thank you again, Todd, for just having me on here a second round. Thank you again for introducing me to these wonderful people. And I just want to say, just like in times like this, keep your body right, exercise, get on your essential oils. It's going to help with your lungs because, again, this COVID is coming for your lungs overall. Like the brother said earlier, once that mucus harden in your lungs, it makes it hard for you to breathe. And once that happens, that just shut down your lungs and everything else. So, keep on exercising and just take care of yourself. Stay away from the comfort food. Get a lot of greens, a lot of food that have a lot of water in there. We need to hydrate the body and loosen and thin the mucus as much as possible. And just again,
but
thank you for having us.
You know what, though? Now that you mentioned it, because like you said, it does attack the chest. And I know it's a special holiday coming up for all my smokers. So before 20 coming up and everybody's getting ready to, do what they do best. I've been getting I've read a report where it says that even marijuana opens you up more to it. So what's your take on that?
Edibles.
It's an answer to everything.
That's right.
I mean, it kind of is. I have indulged in smoking marijuana. I kind of do, but not gonna lie, ever since it's kind of been happening, I've been very mindful. I I wasn't the type to do every day, but I just feel like being mindful, and if you can preserve your lungs and not smoke, I suggest that. But that's just my take on it, because smoke is still smoke at the end of the day. Even though you got the THC and you got your feeling, it's still smoke, and smoke can become tar into your lungs, So that's just my take on it.
Hey, does sea moss help with that?
Yes, it does.
So then all the smokers can really just take sea moss in their lungs, and I don't really know how they put it in your body, but you just put it in your lungs, I guess. Hey, come on, don't laugh at me. Tell me, put me on game. How it works?
It's just how you said it. Like, you just put the sea moss in your lungs. That was great. Put it straight in that. But
I maybe should have said it different. Now they're gonna get the sea moss strand of weed, put it in their lungs, and think that's gonna help.
No. Like, vaping isn't good. Nothing but air is supposed to be in your beautiful lungs, man. Thank you for getting me back on the call and not ending it while I was having technical difficulties. By the way,
it's all good.
Thank you, sir. I hated it.
I got some really good sea moss from a friend of mine. She used to work at 7th as well. Her name is Brandell. She actually gave me my first ever batch of sea moss in the States, because in the islands, we on the beach, we get fresh. We can go pick our sea moss every day, but she was able to get me in the powder form, in the capsule, and in the raw form. So shout out to 7th, shout out to Brandell for that. So yeah.
Yeah, man. Before you left, man, we doing our closing words, and you got any last words you want to use or say to the people?
Yes. To the people, the best thing you can do for yourself is to stay confident and fearless as you go through these awkward times. Know that everything starts from our minds, because we are spiritual beings. So everything has an answer. Every story has an ending. So as we progress, hopefully we'll do more of these, but just know there'll be more of these, even if we don't do it, that will help you guide your way to progression. And only when you stop believing in yourself is when the doors close. So there's nothing to fear. COVID, whether it's 1 million people or not, we get our lives. We only get one. We get multiple, but at the same time, we only get one. So it's like, yeah, I believe in that too. I believe in the multiple lives, but it's like still, these eyeballs that we're looking at.
Podcast with you, bro. I cannot wait. But we're gonna be talking about a lot of stuff. I'm right behind you. I believe it too.
We're doing this again, right?
Oh, 1,000%.
Right.
So it's like, yeah.
1,000%. Yes,
so
sir.
that's just what I think about when anybody that's listening to right now. Every conversation I have is about freaking COVID. So it's like, that is nothing new. It's just the latest name for the bull jive. You know what I mean? So it's like, you just stay focused on growing.
Andrea, beautiful. You got something you want to tell to the people too?
I just want to say yes to everything they said, but I also want to remind you, follow the money. The money never dies, money circulates. And so if you follow the money, a lot of times you can read past the stuff. Don't indulge in the news every day. It's a recycled story. Know that the CDC is backed by private funding. So don't believe everything you hear on the news. Take some time and do some meditation, prayer, yoga, whatever you prefer to call it. Stretch your body out. Yes, working out is great, but also make sure you're stretching so your muscles aren't tight. Make sure that you learn a new skill. Take the time to learn a new skill. Know that right now they are giving away certifications. They are giving away ways for you to level up. And this can definitely be a great shift in our community if we take advantage. Don't get lost in TikTok. Don't
Shout out to TikTok.
It's a nice pastime, but that's also a distractor, right? So now we're all home, we're with our families, we're remembering what it's like to teach our children, we're remembering what it's like to eat breakfast as a family, we're remembering what it's like to eat dinner together, we're remembering what it's like to eat wholesome, because you're kind of scared now to be too close to people or to let them cook your food, which is great. So now you know what you're actually putting into your body, and the more you're aware of what you're putting into your body on a mental, a physical, and a spiritual level, you process it different because it's not so easy and quick. And you're like, man, I might not need that. Or man, this may not. Listen to yourself. Take time every day, preferably early in the morning, because that's when the birds are singing and you really get a chance to focus and just focus on that energy and just be good to yourself. Reach out to your people. Yes, we are supposed to be at home, but being at home doesn't mean we can't contact each other. And sometimes I know for a lot of people, especially people of color, when you're deprived of vitamin D, it leads to things like depression. So if you can step outside on your balcony porch or your front steps to get some vitamin D, do that. If you feel like you're sad and nobody cares about you, reach out to somebody and pour into them. And I promise you, somebody else will end up pouring back into you. So be what you need in the world, and everything you need will show up for you. Be great.
Man, I couldn't end that on a better note. I really appreciate having you guys on as guests, and thank you for the knowledge that you've given everybody, including myself. Until the next time, everybody, it's the 7th Wonder Podcast. We out of here.
Bye-bye. Bye.